So the city's flood mitigation measures program is a combination of upstream reservoirs to mitigate flooding, improved operations of the existing reservoirs, as well as local barriers to protect low-lying communities and lot level protection for individuals. Some of the options that were ruled out during the flood mitigation measures assessment were dredging, wholesale buyout of adjacent to the river communities, as well as permanent barriers for the entire length of the Bow and Elbow rivers, as well as temporary response measures. So dredging of the rivers would involve removal of gravel that was deposited during the 2013 flood. This would have a limited impact on the improved conveyance of the channel, as we would need to remove a really significant amount of gravel to make a difference on flood levels. We are, however, monitoring select gravel bars that we've identified where it's possible that we could have riparian plants, including riparian forests, grow, and that would have a significant impact on river flood levels. So we are targeting removals of select gravel bars, but wholesale dredging of the Bow and Elbow rivers is off the table for a number of reasons, including the environmental impact that it has, the logistics of doing the work, and the potential to cause water quality issues. So Glenmore Reservoir, we did a bathymetric survey of the reservoir following the flood and compared that to levels of the bottom of the reservoir that were measured before the flood, as well as the survey of the reservoir at the time it was constructed. And what we found out was that a very minimal level of the reservoir was taken up by sediment. So there would be a very small benefit in dredging the reservoir. And as well, it would be very difficult to do the dredging, given that the dredging is in very flat, shallow areas. We did look at buying out communities that were located along the river and at risk of frequent flooding. And what we found was that the cost of buyouts was very significant compared to the cost to protect those communities and homes in place. So that was also ruled out. It would be billions of dollars to buy out all of the homes and businesses and buildings at risk in Calgary, whereas protecting them with local barriers is a much more cost-effective solution. The communities that were developed along the river are some of Calgary's oldest communities as well, and they have social and historical significance, and completing buyouts would really ruin the fabric of those communities. We did look at providing local protection through communities with flood barriers for the length of the Bow and Elbow River. And this would be a significant amount of barriers. It would be kilometers of barriers along each river. And on the Elbow River, they would be a significant height. So to mitigate to the level that we feel is appropriate, we need 4 to 5 meter tall barriers on the Elbow River. And that was deemed not to work for the river communities, and the social impacts would be too great for those barriers. Yeah, the way floods develop in Calgary is with rainfall on the mountains and the mid-catchment. And that rainfall shows up in Calgary quite rapidly after it falls. So sometimes we only have between 12 and 24 hours to respond to a flood event between the time it rains and the river levels rise in Calgary. And that gives a very limited time to respond. It's quite a challenge for city staff to resource and implement all of the temporary barriers that we would need to provide protection to the level that we deem is necessary. Well, based on the range of options that we looked at during our flood mitigation measures assessment, we feel that the options that we picked are the most appropriate for Calgary, which include the upstream reservoir, local barriers to protect communities that are still at risk of flooding for a 2013 sized event, lot level protection, as well as education of citizens living in areas at risk.